And here we go. We start with Baylor finding another quarterback for the quarterback room for Jake Spavital, including this was the odds last week on Raquan Finn and where he might end up when he entered the portal out of Toledo. Those were the teams that were, according to Vegas, Daquan Finn's leaders in the clubhouse. He ended up with Baylor. Now, some of them have their quarterback. Some of them still looking for their quarterback, but Baylor went from not on the list to landing him yesterday evening when all that came down.
I don't know if he even visited any of those other places that were on the list. I don't know where else he went, but this is a huge get for Baylor to get a quarterback with some experience, someone who, in a system like Jake Spavital's, could really do well. They've got a couple other transfers today, but they need to now go to work on making sure he is protected up front so that they can keep him healthy all year long and making the plays they expect him to make.
Yeah, it's big news for them. Right with signing day coming up, they didn't have a whole lot of momentum going on these last few days in comparison to, let's say, a TCU or a Texas who are red hot right now in the portal and just in the build-up to signing day. So they really needed to kind of have something break and fall their way. And certainly with the Malik Murphy rescheduling and just the vacancy there at quarterback and Blake Shapen having already moved on, I mean, something really needed to give at the quarterback spot to give you some confidence in that room and give you some confidence in kind of the direction. And he seemed to be the logical guy, especially after Malik Murphy's rescheduling, which who knows if that ever gets rescheduled to where he visits Waco. At this point, doesn't seem like he probably would. It just doesn't make too much sense if he's got other suitors and they now have Daquan Finn in the fold. That's a lot of NIL investment for a starter and then a backup quarterback when you've already got Sawyer Robertson. So I don't know whatever becomes of that, but doesn't so much matter as much now because they got Finn, and that was clearly their top target or the guy that they were heavily after whenever he entered the portal, and excited to see what he can do in Jake Spavital's offense. Be good competition for Sawyer Robertson, who needs some competition, who needs a veteran to help push him and help him grow as well. And obviously, I don't know what to make of the Vegas stuff. It sounds like just throwing stuff out there, quite frankly, and probably having enough gullible people to bet on something like that, because I don't know that he was even whispered to have even been involved with half the teams on that list. So beats me there, but I mean, a good get for Dave Aranda and company, and they desperately need some good news sprinkled in throughout these next few weeks, and so that's a big piece right there.
I haven't seen this, but Timothy Keel, appreciate you. Timothy, Malik Murphy visiting Louisville, which, of course, is Teddy Bridgewater, among what others who have been to Louisville. Baylor also received a verbal commitment from safety Cameron Jenkins, Caden's brother, who's at UNLV, and nose tackle Tonga Lolahea. He is a nose tackle who's at Tyler Junior College. So with Thomas, and we're going to get to all the other schools. Ole Miss loaded up over the last few days, among others. Those three players in the last less than 24 hours as they get. So I think the Baylor fan base, Paul, needed something like this. Also, there's news on the coaching staff front. We'll get to that in a moment. But I think they just needed not just names, but players who are going to help this football team. Or at least they hope so.
Well, and look, Daquan Finn was the one that they really needed. Getting other transfers and getting the guys that they have so far has been great. Especially, look, I'm all for when you get a big defensive or offensive lineman from Euless Trinity. That usually works out. Usually works out. One of those big Tongans that comes in. And so, yeah, absolutely go for that. Like that's one of those things under the radar. I also like that they're using JUCO. I think that's because of the transfer portal. It feels like it's been forgotten a little bit.
The JUCO players?
Yeah. A lot of really good players come out of JUCO ball that may have been overlooked now because you're looking at guys like, oh, this guy was at Auburn. We better go get him. Well, maybe the JUCO guy might be better than the guy who's not working out at Auburn. Just my opinion. But they did need some good news. Look, they love Caden Jenkins, right? And now they have his twin brother in fold. So, the double mint gum of the secondary sounds pretty awesome to me if I'm a Baylor fan. And then if you can keep getting guys out of the portal, especially if you get bigger guys out of the portal and those guys up front, that is going to help you win. I do think that Jake Spavital is the key here. I don't think that if they don't have a coordinator like Jake Spavital, they get a quarterback like Daquan Finn. And, you can look at his record with quarterbacks. Like, he puts up numbers. He's put guys in the league. So this is someone who's going to be wherever he is, regardless of what's happened at that school in years previous. You're going to say, well, I bet you he's going to get me some numbers.
Yeah. Craig, as far as all of them combined, how much do you feel like the feel good? Just like when the coaching staff started to fill up a little bit, and now there's an opening again, but what that meant to get a few of these names, especially the fact that they were able to get them over the weekend when they hosted players, especially with DeQuan Finn.
Yeah, I mean, Finn's a big get, as we just talked about. I think that he brings a nice dual threat nature to the position that they haven't had for some time. I mean, Blake Shapen was basically no threat to run the football. I mean, he might have had a scramble here and there, but he was basically a statue in the pocket. And when he got loose, it was slow motion and it was off balance, and it wasn't the type of a runner that you could see come next year with DeQuan Finn. So I think that's exciting and an element that they haven't had since Gary Bohannon was here probably about 3 years ago. And Gary Bohannon wasn't some great runner, don't get me wrong. But he was solid enough to, be able to get you in the end zone on occasion. And Shapen could do that from time to time, but it was just few and far between, and maybe his numbers were just skewed by all the sack yardage. I don't know. But DeQuan Finn's a guy who runs for over 500 yards and has multiple touchdowns pretty much every single season. That's not something that you've had, like I said, for quite a while now. So, I mean, again, it's a big commit. They have their quarterback. They have their transfer player that is the big piece to hopefully unlock the rest of what's to come here over the next few weeks and help shape up next season. But he and Sawyer Robertson will be a nice duel along with R.J. Martinez and the springtime, and we'll see Nate Bennett come along as well at some point. But they needed this to not only have kind of a stopgap and let Robertson continue to mature, but just have competition in that room. And then, when it comes to Cameron Jenkins, I mean, obviously there's an in there with his brother Caden. I saw Caden Jenkins, who was a guy that they had to hold on to and will have to probably hold on to every year that he's on campus. He's obviously excited about being able to play with his brother who's been at, UNLV. So, I mean, that's a position as well, or just a grouping there in the secondary, but at safety where they definitely need a lot of help. They were not very good at the safety spot and most places on the defense this past season. So you needed an upgrade there, and you've got plenty of familiarity that also hopefully makes your young burgeoning star and Caden Jenkins happy, and who will be playing alongside his brother now in that secondary. And, then as you pointed out, you also go JUCO for Tonga Simeone, Lola Hea, and I might be pronouncing that somewhat wrong. Give me some time on that. But, he seems to have the size and comes from a program that's had a lot of success here with TJC over the last few years. And as Paul pointed out, maybe once in a while JUCO's the way to go, as opposed to just going and grabbing the guy from whatever school A, B, or C in the transfer portal. So, they produce talent. There's a lot of good JUCO players out there, and they need help up front. So, I mean, all of these, give them some nice dose of positive news in, a few days stretch where there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about.
Well, and there may be more. Who knows what still might happen. Jenkins had 32 tackles, no picks or anything like that when he was at UNLV, but he's also just a freshman coming out of where his brother was as well, and a nice, really good freshman All-American year for Caden. Now,